Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the program. Thank you so much for watching Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. My name is Anthony, and I'm your host. This is Financial Markets, where we get to look at the different segments of the markets here and the daily market performances as per the previous trading day, and get to look ahead, of course, of the day and see what we should expect in the day's trading. This show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. Now, if you are planning to buy treasury bonds, you know that we do have competitive and non-competitive bidders. And on the secondary market, of course, they are quite open and anyone can be able to buy or sell. But there have been restrictive measures and policies, especially when it comes to buying bonds here in Uganda. Altex is coming to bridge that gap. Now with Altex, you can buy treasury bonds in East Africa from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania at the best interest rates on the secondary market. The day, of course, starts at 15 past 8, and that is the day of trading, and closes at 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. You can transfer money off your mobile money by simply dialing *292# and making that transaction to your mobile money, and you can be able to buy or sell. So it's for both those traders that are looking to buy and the traders that are looking to sell as well. They're definitely getting you that quick and easy. You can also check them out on their website at Altex East Africa, www.altex East Africa, and you can learn more about their products as well by dialing *292# and following the prompts. Altex East Africa, do something new. Now, starting off with the Uganda Securities Exchange, we're going to look at the trading for as per closing the markets yesterday. Quite a number of things that you must know. We cannot, of course, get to analyze the markets during the trading, and by the time this show is airing, we have the markets open and there's no data for the day. Our markets haven't reached that level of activity, but we can always get to look back in the day before and consider the previous days as well and make comparisons and probably look for a way forward. Starting off with the Uganda Securities Exchange. In this exchange, we have 18 companies, and 8 of these are domestic, rather cross listings from Nairobi Securities Exchange, and while the 10 are domestically listed equities from Uganda. Now, according to statistics, there was only 2 companies participating in the trading, which ended with 4 gainers and approximately 3 losers on the market. Centum Investments led the gainers this time around with a 3.2% gain to close at 255.49 Ugandan shillings per share. Centum has been one of those companies that have lost value drastically on the Uganda Stock Exchange, and probably this gain is trying to give us a signal that it could be coming back. But this currently is one of the worst performances on Centum stocks ever since it got listed in the year 2011. The company has a total market capitalization of close to 170 billion Ugandan shillings, valued at, of course, being the 13th most valuable on the Uganda Securities Exchange. It represents about 0.811% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, this is a company engaged in investment. They do have investments across East Africa. They do invest in various asset classes, and they help also invest in financial markets. So they get you ahead on those kind of investments that you might want to get done through different segments. They have, of course, financial institutions like the Citian Bank, which they were actually able to sell to a Nigerian money lender last year, and that was, of course, to kind of get back some money, and because the company was currently also making a few losses in last year. Activity on the Uganda Securities Exchange has been quite slow, and the company, however, of course, is the most traded on cross-listed stock, and according to data here, in this year we haven't had any trading yet. Their last day of trading was the 11th of August 2022, and they recorded about 7,800 shares on that particular day, and where they closed about 308.81 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, yesterday, the company closed the day with a price of 255.49 Ugandan shillings, which was a 7.93 Ugandan shillings rise from the day before. The company's also previous closing when they last traded was 302.99 Ugandan shillings. However, Centum began the year with a price of 247.26 and has since then gained 3.33%. So that is, of course, a year that has only had 5 days off because today is the 6th and yesterday was just the 5th day of the year. So year to date is still quite not a good representation of performance given the few days that we have, of course, taken off the year 2023. But in as far as trading on the Uganda Stock Exchange, the company hasn't had any activity so far this year. Looking at also their monthly performance, they are currently at a 3.98% gain. Of course, given this particular gain, it's making up for the many losses that have been witnessed in the last couple of months on the Uganda Stock Exchange via this company, Centum Investments. Away from Centum, Nation Media Group as well gained after losing yesterday. Nation Media Group is a media house based in Kenya, and currently they have about 90.5 billion Ugandan shillings worth of market capitalization, and this represents about the 14th most valuable company or stock on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Nation Media Group gained 3.18 shillings up to 480.18 Ugandan shillings, which was a 0.67% growth in the market price. And the shares outstanding currently are 189 million shares on the market, and with a market capitalization of 90.5 billion Ugandan shillings. The company, of course, is not the only media house, with New Vision Limited as another house competing, of course, with the company on the Uganda Stock Exchange. This one has about 155 Ugandan shillings per share and 11.9 billion market capitalization, that is in Ugandan shillings. But the company, Nation Media Group, has also faced, just like all the other cross listings, no activity this year so far for the first 5 days of trading of the year 2023. Equity Bank Limited gained 0.37% and closed the day with 1,363.53 Ugandan shillings per share. Equity Bank currently enjoys the #1 position in terms of value of its stock, and has a total stock of about 5.05 trillion Ugandan shillings, which represents approximately a quarter of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange. Precisely speaking, about 24.1% of the Uganda Securities Exchange. Currently, this stock, of course, has had ups and downs. At 1,363.53, the company is still, when you look at, for example, last year around this time, we had about 1,600, somewhere around that as the value of the company. Currently at 1,363.53, the company has lost quite some value as well. So definitely there is a lot to ask for from Equity Bank Limited. Being a most valuable stock is not enough. There must be activity. There must be something to draw investors into the company. Maybe dividends, maybe the profitability of the company. It has to be there. But for Equity Bank Limited on the Uganda Stock Exchange, nothing yet so far. East Kenya Airways as well gained a 0.03%, and this was to gain to a price of 115.67 Ugandan shillings per share. Well, Kenya Airways is still going through a number of problems as well. And just last year, when President William Ruto was on a visit to the United States to attend the Africa-US Summit, he mentioned to investors, or actually the owners of Delta Airlines in America, which is one of the biggest US airlines, and he mentioned the fact that he could sell Kenya Airways to Delta Airlines if of course they had a deal, a very good deal there. And he was saying, what is the point for having an unprofitable airline that is draining the country's reserves, because basically the government of Kenya is running Kenya Airways. It's not profitable yet, and it has a very huge debt that is still pending. And of course, COVID-19 pandemic did not leave the airline business the same, with African airlines going bankrupt, most of them. Of course, with a few exceptions like Ethiopian Airlines that remain profitable despite the tough times that we went through during the COVID-19 pandemic. Kenya Airways still is on the other side of the track, and a lot is left to be desired on this one, and we hope definitely 2023 could be a better year for the company. They went through a pilot strike just recently as well, which affected as well the reputation of the company, not only on the stock exchange, but also in the world of business and in the customer services there in Kenya Airways. But as per yesterday, Kenya Airways stock constituted about exactly 5.69 billion shares, with a total market capitalization of 657 billion. This makes the company the seventh most valuable on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Kenya Airways was one of the early listings on cross listings on the Uganda Stock Exchange, dating way back in the year 2002. Away from Kenya Airways, now those were the big gainers rather on the day. And on the losing side as well, we did have only the cross listings, with Jubilee Holdings Limited coming in at the bottom with a total depreciation of 3.34% on the market. Jubilee Holdings lost to a value of 5,836.15 Ugandan shillings per share. And this was after the losses they had on this particular day. Jubilee Holdings has also been up and down, now back to below 6,000 shillings. Looking way back in 2020, the company's stock was well above 10,000, to be very precise, about 11,000, between 11 and 12,000. And even much further back in 2018, the company's stock at a point wanted actually to hit 20,000. Very closely, when you look at the curve, it almost just brushed off the 20,000 mark. Now that looks like the peak value there, but actually, yes, in 2017, you look at, between 15,000 and 20,000 back in 2017. Now over the past 4 years, now the company is counting over 50% losses in those last 4 years, down to 5,836.15. Definitely a big blow for the company there. Now shares outstanding currently are 59.9 million, and with about a market capitalization of 350 billion Ugandan shillings. Away from the Jubilee Holdings company, East African Breweries Limited had also a big gain for the day. The company currently enjoys second most valuable position in terms of the market capitalization. That is kicking away, of course, MTN Uganda, which was in this position last year most of the time, with a total of 4.04 trillion Ugandan shillings market capitalization, the company represents 19.3% of the equities market on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Currently, they have a 28.5 Ugandan shillings down on their trading yesterday, and closing with a trading price of 5,103.8 Ugandan shillings. This represented a 0.56% off their trading price for the day. Now, Jubilee Holdings Limited has about 791 million shares that are currently being floated on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Market capitalization over 4.04 trillion Ugandan shillings as well. That's pretty much about East African breweries. KCB, or Kenya Commercial Bank, also lost yesterday, a total value of 0.36%, and closing at 1,153 Ugandan shillings as their last trading price. The company currently is the fourth most valuable on the Uganda Stock Exchange, and with a market capitalization of about 3.44 trillion Ugandan shillings, representing about 16.4% of the entire Uganda Securities Exchange equities market. The company is a financial institution based in Kenya with subsidiaries, of course, across East Africa, and looking to expand as well to other countries in Africa. But without much to say about the company's stock, they have also generally declined. And I know this really sounds bad, but the fact is most of these companies have lost an immense value on the market. And later on, I'm going to be reading about a report that I found across one of the dailies in Kenya, and it was talking about how the Nairobi Securities Exchange has wiped out over $6 billion over last year. Those are reports, of course, from the Nairobi Stock Exchange, and this is due to mainly foreign investors liquidating, and because of the inflation, the Russia-Ukrainian war, supply chain disruptions. This has put a lot of pressure on the stock markets because of the high interest rates on the treasury bonds across the global markets. You can look at the US treasury bonds, very highly priced there, with over the interest going to above 4%. That, of course, gave investors a red flag, and they definitely liquidated and moved out to get to invest in those other markets. Also, the dollar getting stronger and stronger by the day as the shillings getting weaker is another factor that actually drove away very many investors. This has led to what we are currently seeing. Even us here on the Uganda Stock Exchange, to be honest, we are guilty because we do have an influx on foreign investors. We do have very many foreign investors, pretty much more foreign investors probably than the local ones. Of course, that's arguable, but on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, they even had to change the policy. The policy was that foreign investors can only have 70% of the companies, but because of the great influence they did have on the market, that was removed, and they could hold over 100% of a given company on the stock exchange in Nairobi. So that shows you what we need to do right now. We need to get back to the roots. We need to get to trust our market. We need to get to participate in our market. If you're saving money, put aside some for investing in the market, so you can keep your savings going, but also keeping our markets afloat. This is very, very important for the health of the capital markets in East Africa. There was, of course, something that came up that we should unite as East Africans and have a common market. Probably this will be a way to harmonize and get to trade better. But this is still underway in the pipeline to create an East African capital markets, a unified market where it's a one-stop center for all your trading on the different stocks and markets, financial markets. And that will definitely, in my view, be one of the biggest steps for us towards improving the capital markets in East Africa. Amongst the participants here, we did have, like I mentioned, two of them participating in the trading. Very small volumes here, with Stanbic Bank having the biggest volume. And Stanbic Bank traded about 107,600 shares, and MTN Uganda about 7,144. Those were the only two participants in the market on the Uganda Stock Exchange as per trading yesterday. Now, regarding the performance of the USE market indices, the benchmark index, which is the all share index tracking the aggregate performance of all the 18 listed stocks, lost a value of actually remained the same with about 1,219.8 points. There was no shift or changes there. And currently we are seeing a 4-week gain of 1.55%, year-to-date gain of 0.6%. It's a new year, but we have started and we want to start very, very strong. The USE local company index, similar situation, did not have any change in its value, maintaining 272.65 points, which were the day's beginning points. And currently the week gain is at 0.02% on the local company index. That's it, my friend, for the Uganda Securities Exchange. We are going to take a short break and we'll return shortly with the Nairobi Securities Exchange as well, and other tradings across East Africa as well on the US Stock Exchange. My name is Anthony. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Smart 24, driving business.
The taste of Uganda in a new international park.
Sebo oba nnyabo olilandira odi oba olina ekifo ekipangisibwa juwala ekujjukiza okwewandiisa ofune ennamba ey'omusolo eyitibwa tax identification number abasinga gye mumanyi nga TIN. Ennamba eyo ejja kuyamba okwanjula n'okusasulirako omusolo. Tusima balandiroodi abaamala edda okwewandiisa n'okusasula omusolo gwabwe, era tukubiriza abo bonna abatannaba kwewandiisa bakozese akaseera kano beewandiise. Tukolere wamu okulaakulanya eggwanga lyaffe.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
Smart 24, driving business.
A warm welcome back and thank you so much for watching Smart 24 TV. We drive your business. This is Anthony and I am your host for Financial Markets, where we get to look at a deeper analysis of the market performances of the different listed companies on the stock exchanges across East Africa and Africa at large, as well as the global markets as well. Now, let's get a look at Nairobi Securities Exchange, established in 1954 and currently one of the oldest stock exchanges in Africa and the oldest in East Africa, as well as the largest. The company has about 65 listed equities in terms of trading. It is the most highly traded on in East Africa, and amongst the top 10 most traded on or most active stocks in Africa. However, like I mentioned before going into the break, Nairobi has had a very rough 2022, and now we are into a new year, but things are not seemingly getting better at all in the short run. Investors on the Nairobi Securities Exchange lost a total of 777.83 billion Kenyan shillings, approximately 6.37 billion US dollars. We're talking about 6.37 billion US dollars of wealth lost in 9 months as the value of the listed firms plunged by 28% amid a persistent bear run on the struggling bourse. Now, the central bank's monthly economic data shows that the bourse's market capitalization fell to 2 trillion Kenyan shillings. That is about 16.39 billion US dollars from 2.77 trillion Kenyan shillings, which is about 22.7 billion US dollars during the period under review, that is 2022, with the situation compounded by massive exits from foreign investors. Also, according to the Central Bank of Kenya monthly economic indicators report September, the foreign investors' participation in the bourse fell to 35.92% from 49.92% in the month of September, towards the month of September, that is in the year 2022. Now, the Nairobi Stock Exchange is bearing the brunt of rising inflation, growing interest rates, and a depreciating shilling, as well as general investor apathy and the lack of new listings, as well as poor performance of listed firms and massive sell-offs by the international investors. Foreigners are liquidating very quickly, looking at, for example, statistics, and their investments are being liquidated, especially from the emerging and frontier markets, as a result of the rising interest rates in the US and Europe, and the geopolitical tensions brought about by the ongoing war in Russia and Ukraine. Kenya is facing difficulties in attracting foreign inflows after foreign investors dumped shares worth over about 19.54 Kenyan billion shillings, and this is approximately 160.16 million US dollars in the 9 months to September, amid, of course, concerns by the New York-based Morgan Stanley Capital International and on the country's deteriorating investment environment. Last year, the Morgan Stanley Capital International put Kenya on a watch list of troubled markets unfit for foreign investors alongside Nigeria, Mauritius, Egypt, Sri Lanka, Brazil, and Qatar. Now, in the latest market review reports that were published in June, the Morgan Stanley Capital International highlighted difficult conditions, investment conditions that have hampered many foreign investors in Kenya. These include the biting dollar. Foreigners, of course, also complain about the compounding of course, of the depreciating shillings, leading to a rise in the forex deposits. According to the report of the Morgan Stanley Capital International, it also raised concerns regarding how the government of Kenya imposed foreign capital repatriation restrictions by demanding certificate of foreign currency inflow before allowing investors to send home their investment earnings. In June, the Nairobi Securities Exchange last year, the NSE 20, that is the tracker of the top 20 Nairobi Securities Exchange listings, and as well the benchmark, it fell below 1,700 for the first time in the last 20 years, indicating muted activity and free fall of prices of the 68-year-old stock market. In 2015, Kenya abolished the 75% restriction on foreign shareholding in listed companies, of course, allowing now 100% ownership of a listed firm by foreign investors. The amendment of this on the capital markets, that is foreign investors regulation, allowed the Treasury Cabinet Secretary to prescribe maximum foreign holding in an issuer or listed company considered of strategic interest. However, the markets in Nairobi Securities that was gained on the market. On the losing side, unfortunately, Sanlam Kenya came out second last, with Kapchora Tea Company coming out last after losing about 9.94%, closing at 104.25 Kenyan shillings per share. Sanlam also lost about 8.1%, whereas Total Kenya lost 7.61% and Standard Group lost 7.22%. Absa Bank Kenya recorded the highest volume of 2.83%, 83 million traded shares, and these were followed by Equity Group Holdings at 1.6 million and Kenya Power and Lighting Company at 507,300 shares, whereas Safaricom at 279,300 shares. Safaricom, you can see, has contracted in volumes, and like I mentioned at the beginning of this second segment, there is a lot that is left to be desired at Nairobi Securities Exchange, especially in the current market conditions. Companies are losing great value on the market, and there's something that needs to be done. However, it's an encouragement that we can keep on investing and try to invest through especially the unit trusts, because under the unit trust you're protected as an investor, because as you can see today, Kapchora Tea is going up, the next day is going down. It's quite unpredictable what can happen on the stock exchange, and so to kind of get over the risk, please try to invest via the unit trusts. These will help you in not only protecting your money but also liquidity. They do provide liquidity because for unit trusts, unlike the stock exchange or any other business investing asset classes, you can be able to pull out your money as fast as you want it. And so definitely there would be something you can consider in this period as we, of course, go through these tough economic times. Regarding the economic performance of the market indices, that is the benchmark all share index, it climbed up a little bit by 0.38 points, and this was a 0.3% gain, closing at 127.32 points, representing a 1-week loss of 0.57% and a 4-week gain of 0.71%, yet an overall year-to-date loss of 0.12%. Already we are counting losses on the year-to-date. Oh my, what a market this one is right now. The other remarkable indices were the NSE 20, with the NSE 20 appreciating 0.82% and the NSE 25 appreciating 0.53%, and that is, of course, the trading from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Allow me go to another stock exchange here, and I'm going to go straight away to Johannesburg and find out what their trading looks like on this particular day of trading. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange has quite a number of listings. It is the principal stock exchange in South Africa, of course, but the biggest in Africa, the largest and busiest market on the African continent. It counts about over 420 listings on its equities market and currently enjoys a very huge market capitalization of over 21 trillion South African rand. At the end of the day's trading session yesterday, there was a total of about 172 million shares, above 172 million shares in about 253,000 deals that were made on the market, and a total market turnover of about 16.4 billion South African rand. In aggregate, 318 Johannesburg Stock Exchange listed equities participated in trading, ending the day with over 117 gainers and 170 losers. Brimstone Investment Corporation Limited led the gainers at 20.63%. Share price appreciation closing at 6.55 rand per South African rand per share, followed by Novus. Novus Holdings gained about 9.86%, and DRA Global gained about 9%, and PBT Group gained about 7.57%. On the losing side, Kibo Energy came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of about 25% at exactly 0.03 South African rand per share, and Europa Metals at 13.79% loss. African Media Entertainment lost about 11.98%, whereas Trelido Holdings lost 10.71%. Now, the Growth Properties was the highest trader, highest record trader in terms of volumes, with over 11.8 million shares, followed by Sibanye Stillwater at 11.3, and Old Mutual at 10.6 million, and KAP Industrial Holdings at 9.91 million. The J203, which is the benchmark index, inched up 131.3 points, and this was to close at 74,567 points, representing a 1-week gain currently of 1.46% and a 4-week loss of over 0.6% on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And that's, my friend, the trading from Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Now, generally speaking, across Africa, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange moved upwards over 554 points on its benchmark index, representing a 2.76% gain on Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is also one of those outstanding stock exchanges back there in Zimbabwe. The companies that traded were about 30, ending with over 18 gainers and 6 losers on the market, with OK Zimbabwe leading the gainers as well. Away from Zimbabwe, when you look at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the company as well lost 780 points on its benchmark index, the OSHA index. And currently they're also counting a few losses with over 111 participants in the day's trading and over 20 gainers and 16 losers on the market. And Sterling Bank recorded the biggest volume at over 29.2 million shares that were traded yesterday. Looking at the Ghana Stock Exchange, 0.0 was nothing. There was nothing that changed on their benchmark index, and it has been quite like that for some time. Ghana is also registering some slight few declines as well currently on their stock exchange. Thus, the general performance of the African stock exchanges as per data from yesterday's trading. Now let's get to cross over to the United States as well and get to have a look at what's happening on the US stock exchange. As per yesterday, markets returned very slow activity with stocks falling after strong labor market data. Now the US stocks sank starting Thursday morning after the economic data showed private payrolls rose more than expected last month, and weekly jobless claims fell to a 3-month low, pointing to continued tightness in the labor market despite higher interest rates. The S&P 500, or the Standards & Poor's, tracking the top 500 American companies, plopped about 0.7%, whereas the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost about 250 points, or 0.8%, and the technology-heavy Nasdaq Composite tumbled 0.9%. According to the ADP National Employment Report, it showed that private employment grew by 235,000 jobs in December in the United States. And economists, of course, surveyed by Bloomberg, called for an increase of 150,000. Elsewhere in the economic data, filings for unemployment insurance also fell to 204,000, the lowest since September in the week ended December 31st. From the prior week's downwardly revised reading of over 223,000, the Labor Department said Thursday. That's it, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the financial markets. And my name is Anthony. Remember to save some money and invest. I know it's January and a lot is going on. School fees is coming up, but don't forget to save with the little you're earning. My name is Anthony. I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place.